Having a child, however, is associated with a much bigger decrease in the probability of a woman working, whereas the second child doesn't have any additional probability of a woman working, no additional effect after the first child. Here we show the share of formal employment by age. Again, for single women, married women, women with one child or two children. And so this is a share of employment in the formal sector. And you can see that even being married decreases the share of women employment in the formal sector by 17 percentage points, so that's pretty large. And then having a first child decreases that probability again by a further 25 percentage. These are really very large declines in the share of formal employment associated with getting married, having a child, and there's a further large decrease in the share of formal sector employment associated with a second child. So looking at this data, there are two possibilities. Either women are moving out of formal sector employment and moving into the informal sector, or they might be leaving the labour market. And if you just look at observations from cross-sectional data where you're just observing women at one point in time, you can't differentiate between those two situations. So using the tracking data, we're able to look at individual women and look at their employment before marriage and then after marriage, after they have their first child. And what we're doing in this figure is we're looking 3 years after their first child. So these figures take a little bit of getting used to as to how to read them. On the left-hand side, we have the status of work of the woman before marriage. And down the bottom, we have the status of work of the woman 3 years after the first child. So along the diagonal where you can see those tall boxes, that's when there's no change in the transition. There's no transition. So a self-employed woman before marriage is still self-employed after the first child. And that's that big red box there. So what we're interested in doing is looking at transition. So they're squares off the diagonal. And you can see there aren't very high boxes off the diagonals. The highest boxes are in the not working column on the right side. And in that column you can see the dark column is those women who weren't working before or not working afterwards. That's actually not a transition. But you can see the blue column on the right